I'm Chris Thomas, and this is Master Class. When people approach Kyusho jitsu for the first time, they tend to be overwhelmed, especially when they start looking and they realize how many points there are and all of this knowledge, and you walk in the room and people are talking about five-element theory and yin-yang theory and this kind of stuff. And it's kind of overwhelming. So what I want to do today is give you a framework that simplifies that, both in terms of enabling you to learn it by having categories to drop things into, but also in terms of understanding that you can actually use pressure point fighting in a real fight pretty quickly if you understand a couple of really simple things. So, a really complicated art doesn't translate to fighting, but I'm going to teach you basically the theory of pressure points in a way that ends up with what I call pressure points for dummies. To understand pressure points, we talk about four principles. The first principle is called area control. And what that means is very simple. Every pressure point controls something nearby. It was said to me in my training by my teacher, each point controls a joint. So to understand area control, I have to understand that, for example, if his fist is strong, if I touch the point on the heart meridian, which is called heart 6, I can bend his wrist. So I might not be able to bend his wrist this way, but it's very easy for me to do this way because the point releases the wrist. Likewise, if he's grabbed onto me and I'm trying to get his arm off, if I hit the point called lung 6, it releases his grip very easily. So understanding this is what area control means. Now, to do area control means that I'm doing what we would call single point fighting. I'm just dealing with one point at a time. Here's what then you have to know. First, where is the point? You have to know its location. If you hit in the wrong place, it doesn't work. I mean, literally, if he's grabbing me and I hit in the wrong place, it doesn't work. So that's above the point. Now I'm going to hit down here below the point. That still doesn't work. When I hit on the point, it works really easily. So you have to actually know where the point is. Then you have to know what the mode of activation is. There are three modes of activation. There's press or touch, rub, or you might say grind, and hit. Here's this point. Lung 6, he grabs on. I know if I hit it, it'll release, but if I push on it, it doesn't work. I'm grinding it, it doesn't work. I hit it, boom, works really easily. So that point responds to a hit. It has to do with the neurology of the point. It responds to a hit, but not to the others. The point on the heart meridian, that's considered a touch point, so what that means is I have to touch it, I dig my finger. Now notice that my touch is really deep. I'm digging my finger in there. But it's a touch point. It releases when I touch it. It doesn't release from hitting and it doesn't release from rubbing. But in contrast, this point on the lung meridian, this is lung 8. Lung 8 is a rub point. And the way you rub it, the point's here, but I start up here and I rub towards it. Now this begins to tell you another piece to this, which is called angle and direction. So where is the point? How do I attack it? Do I attack it by rubbing, by touching, or by pressing on it? But what's the direction? If I rub the point this way, away, it doesn't work. But if I rub the point this way, towards me, works right away. So this is a rub point that causes his hand to become weak, and in particular weakens these three fingers. It has to do with the neurology again. These three fingers are innervated by the radial nerve. I'm affecting the radial nerve. But I have to rub in this direction. It releases it very easily. So what's the direction? How do you attack the point? Where is the point located? Then I recommend at this phase, at this level of training, this is how you begin pressure point training. You learn a point, you learn where it is, learn what it does. Does it bend the wrist? Does it release the elbow? You learn what it does. You learn how you're going to attack it. I also recommend you learn the name. Get used to the name. It's very helpful. I mean, now everything is a Chinese name. But But the thing is, the Chinese names are meaningful to people who speak Chinese. Now, sometimes you'll hear me refer to them. I'll say, oh, this is large intestine 10, Shu San Li. Oh, okay, so I can say Shu San Li, probably not well. But large intestine 10 actually is information I'm going to want later. So if you get used to naming the points by their element, it's the meridian and the point number, you will then, that actually will tell you something later on. I mean, you'll be able to identify other characteristics just by knowing that. The point of that kind of jargon is to shorthand it. So if I say lung 5, I know all kinds of things about lung 5 by virtue of the fact that I just told myself it was lung. That gives me information that I'm going to need later. So you don't have to do that. You can call it that point by the elbow and you're fine. But at the first level, when you're dealing with area control, I recommend you learn the point name, what we call the alphanumeric name. So the name of the meridian, lung or large intestine or stomach or pericardium, and then the point number. But what's important for you to understand is where is the point, what's the angle that you attack it at, angle and direction, what's the method you use to attack it, do you rub it, do you press on it, touch it, or do you hit it? And finally, what does it do when you do these things? The next principle of Kyusho Jitsu is the principle called systemic compromise. So first you have to understand what system means. When we talk about Kyusho Jitsu, we start to talk about the meridians, the same meridians that are used in acupuncture. Now, when we're talking about area control, we're going to talk about local anatomy. So you heard me mention before, I mentioned the radial nerve, just sort of in passing. Well, there's a lot of that stuff. If I'm talking about lung 6 and how it's a hit point, I may also start talking about something called a fusiform fiber, which is designed to monitor the bone and see if the bone is going to break. And that when I'm hitting it, I'm tricking that thing it tells the body the bone's going to break. And so that's why the hand release and it jumps away, because it's trying to escape a threat to break the bone. And this bypasses the brain and goes through the spinal reflex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Local anatomy when we describe area control, but when we start to talk about the next level up, now we're talking Chinese medicine, traditional Oriental medicine. The meridian, the lung meridian, for example, is not just about the meridian. It's also about the organ that it's attached to. So when we say lung, we literally mean both the organ, the physical organ that you would look up in an anatomy book, and the meridian that you would see in an acupuncture book. And here's how you can see this. If I press on it, now this is a hit point, lung 5, but what I'm going to do is manipulate it in a way that I can get an effect without actually hitting it. Now what you're going to see, this is basically the same reaction I would get by hitting it, a little less dramatic because I'm just pressing on it, but I want you to watch. There's a lung here and there's a lung here. This is the meridian on this side. It affects that lung. You can see the body trying to protect the lung. The body pulls the lung out of the way to defend it. In fact, not only that, but as the body pulls the lung out of the way, the lung is still fairly protected right here because the body is rounding to protect the lung. What's actually happening is that the weakness of the lung goes into the back. It's way back here. You can see, I'm just like a little finger taps. But that's where the weakness is gone from attacking this point. Now, if I attack the large intestine point, large intestine is colon, you'll see how his body right here, that's where his large intestine is, moves away. It's trying to escape. So everything is that way. You grab a point, here's the heart meridian point, look at him try to move his heart out of the way. His body is reacting to protect the organ. So if you understand this, then what you realize is that any time you attack a point on a meridian, you are compromising that system, the whole system. The lung, the meridian itself. And so here's what that means. You can think of it this way. If I attack a point, that point is under attack, so it calls for reinforcements. The most important thing that the whole meridian wants to guard is the organ itself, moves out of the way to hide and protect, but energy is diverted from everywhere else in the meridian to the place I'm attacking. And that means that the rest of the meridian is now weakened. It's under-defended. Here's a great way for us to demonstrate that. Right here, at the end of the nasal sulcus is the point large intestine 20. Large intestine meridian happens to be the only meridian that actually crosses the body. So this large intestine meridian over here ends over here and vice versa. If I push on that with my knuckle, I get a nice reaction. But, so let's say he's holding on to me, I push on it with my knuckle, nice reaction. But if I just touch here and push, it's a much bigger reaction. That's because just by touching here, I've created a threat in the meridian. The energy gets diverted here. All of the other points are weakened. So the systemic compromise means that once I attack any point on the meridian, I just keep attacking points on the meridian. It's a very, very simple concept. Very easy to do, but you can see why it happens and why it works. The next of the 4 principles is called relational artifact. That's a fancy word for the fact that what it is systemic compromise is how my attacking a meridian affects just that thing. A relational artifact is how that impacts other parts of the body, related elements in the body. Now, this is where it gets a little mucky for a lot of people because we start talking about the principles of yin and yang, diurnal cycle, 5-element theory, and that's where this is going to be the point where it starts to feel overwhelming. But understand all of these things are just examples of the same fundamental principle. It goes like this. If I attack a point, the body diverts energy to that point. It also prevents energy from leaving the meridian. So, see, meridian's like a river. Water's always going through. That's the chi. That's the energy that you use. The water goes through the meridian, enters into a different meridian, keeps going. What's going to happen is the body has to stop that from happening. Because I can't afford to lose energy if I'm fighting, so I need to defend. So I not only am going to draw reinforcements from elsewhere in the meridian, systemic compromise, I'm also going to defend myself by not allowing resources to leave the meridian. And what that means is, so I'm going to use large intestine 10 on the outside of his arm. I'm not going to hit it. It's a hit point, but I'm not going to hit it. I'm going to, again, use my finger. There's a way to manipulate it with your finger. That's just a trick that we use later on to attack hit points without actually hitting them. But when I do this, I'm attacking the large intestine. Here's what that means. It means the large intestine doesn't want to give up any energy, so it stops the flow of energy out of the meridian into the next meridian in what is known as the 24-hour cycle or the diurnal cycle. Well, the next meridian in the 24-hour cycle is the stomach meridian. I want you to see how this works. So if you look right here, this is stomach 5 right here. When I press on his large intestine point, you see his stomach 5 comes towards me. It comes towards me. If I actually hit the point, one of the things you'll see is that it really comes towards me. It almost is like going, hit me, hit me, hit me. And so of course, I would oblige because, don't look a gift point in the mouth. So this is an example of how diurnal cycle works. And diurnal cycle is everywhere in the body. If I hit, say, the triple warmer meridian, if I tap on the triple warmer meridian like this, look right there, that's the gallbladder. And you can actually see how his gallbladder is in line with my hand. I struck on triple warmer. Triple warmer energy goes into gallbladder. What's happened is the triple warmer stops the energy going into gallbladder. Gallbladder is depleted, and it's right there for me to hit. And this is just sort of standard stuff. Oh, there it is, bang. It's automatic because this is what's happening. The body is preventing the energy from moving on. The next rule that comes under the category relational artifact. So the first rule is the diurnal cycle. The next rule is called the rule of yin and yang. So what you have to imagine now is this point is under attack. It's not going to let energy leave. It calls for reinforcements from the meridian. Now it has to call for reinforcements from its closest ally. The closest ally is the yin or the yang paired meridian. So all meridians are in pairs. Lung is paired with large intestine. One is yin, one is yang. But they have the same element. Heart is paired with small intestine. One is yin, one is yang, but they have the same element. So this is a characteristic of yin and yang. They're sometimes called husband and wife in Chinese medicine. So it's the husband or the wife that you call for help. And so they have to come running. That means if I press here on his stomach, this is his stomach meridian, this is his lung meridian, lung 5. But what I want you to see is, I'll do it on this side so you can watch. This right here is the large intestine meridian. It's right on the side here. But when I press on that, you see how it stretches? You can actually see it stretch. This is weakened. It's very easy to tap this. Now, if he's just standing here like this and I tap it, I don't get any kind of reaction at all. But if I do this, whoop, there it is. Okay, so this exposes this. It's really, really simple. This is the yin and the yang. So if I tack a point on large intestine, I can go after lung. If I tack a point on lung, I can go after large intestine. Well, let's show you an example the other direction. Here's the large intestine point. This is a lung point over here. Here's a lung point over here. If I just hit this point, it hurts. If I do this first, it's worse. Yin and yang. It's because by attacking the meridian, this calls for reinforcements from its closest ally, from the spouse meridian, and the spouse meridian is weakened. Everything I've talked about so far is about the way in which the point tries to reinforce itself against the attack, harden itself against the attack by calling for reinforcements. But there's one more dynamic going on. When you attack a point, you're putting energy into that point. That energy is hostile energy. It's negative energy. It's energy that has to be gotten rid of. You can imagine it like when the enemy shoots a firebomb. You've got to put out the fire somehow. So the way that the body puts out the fire is it shunts the bad energy to call it a garbage meridian. Every meridian has another meridian that it doesn't like. And it goes, and it like, I don't like you, so you can have the garbage. It sends energy in a way that's harmful to another meridian. We call that the controlling cycle or the cycle of destruction. This is what five-element theory is about. Five-element theory says that if I attack this metal meridian, the energy in the metal meridian, as it's defending against my attack, it also has to get rid of the energy I put in. It's going to shunt that energy to its trash bin meridian. In this case, it's wood. Metal, we say, cuts wood. Well, the wood meridians are liver and gallbladder. And you can actually see how this works. So gallbladder's up here and back here behind his head. And when I do this, there it is. Oops, see, it comes forward. And the harder I do it, the more he turns, so I start to get the gallbladder in the back. But he's always giving me the gallbladder. He always gives me that gallbladder. But also, he's weak down here. This is where the liver meridian is. The liver meridian is also located in the legs. As I do this, his legs become exposed so that it's very easy for me to kick inside his legs to the liver meridian. His body is sort of giving up these points because they are the things that are weakened. That's what five-element does. So it's really simple. Metal cuts wood. Wood sets up earth. Earth sets up water. Water obstructs fire. And fire melts metal. Okay? That's how that works. And it's a very easy cycle to remember. If you just picture a metal axe cutting wood, picture a tree setting its roots into the ground, picture the earth, a dam or the banks of a river holding back the water, picture the water putting out the fire, and picture the fire melting the earth. Or melting the metal. It's very easy to remember this, and it's not hard to see how it works. So those are the main principles. So diurnal cycle, which is the order in which energy goes through the body 24 hours a day. The yin-yang combinations, knowing how they go together, and the five-element theory. This is why it's good to know right away the names of the meridians you're on. If you talk about lung 10, when I learn about lung 10, here's lung 5 point. I learned the lung 5 point. Later on, I learned about the lung meridian, that it's a metal meridian, that it's yin, that it's paired with large intestine, and that what comes before it in the diurnal cycle is the liver meridian. So now I know all kinds of information, and I don't have to regurgitate that. I just say lung, and I know all of those things about it. That's why knowing the jargon is helpful. So when we talk about relational artifact, we're talking about these simple principles, yin-yang, five-element diurnal cycle. There's one more rule we work with, and this rule is called the rule of the special points. This is just a characteristic of individual pressure points. Some of these individual pressure points aren't even on the meridians. They are standalone points. But even a lot of the pressure points on the meridians have special characteristics or special qualities that if you understand, you can exploit. So I'll just give you a simple example of this. There's a point located right up here. It's just in the center of the clavicle. It's called Trepan stomach 12. It's right back here. And you push on it, and it hurts, right? You get a nice reaction. Now, here's the thing about this point. This is a stomach meridian point. If I press on the pericardium, I should not really get anything to happen, and yet something happened. How come that's working? Wait, okay, that kind of hurts. I push here, it hurts more. I don't understand that because there's no direct relationship. Pericardium is fire. In fact, fire nourishes earth, which is what stomach is, so that doesn't make any sense. Pressing on this point should make that point stronger. They're not in the diurnal cycle together. Stomach is preceded by large intestine and followed by spleen, so there's nothing there. They're not yin and yang cousins at all. They're not related to each other in any way. So how come it works? Well, it turns out that this point on the stomach meridian is actually a point of intersection where all three of the arm yang meridians, which is to say large intestine, triple warmer, and small intestine, all three of those meridians go through that point. So this one point on the stomach meridian can be treated as if it is a point on these other three meridians. Here's what that means. It means if I press on this point, I set up all of those arm yang meridians. So here's his large intestine, right? And if he's really strong and I'm pounding on him and not getting a result, maybe I touch here first and then hit there, and now I have a good reaction. Or I could say, well, gosh, the triple warmer meridian is yang, its yin partner is pericardium. I press on pericardium here, and look, this is as if I'm on a triple warmer point. I mean, the old meridian charts actually show this is part of the triple warmer meridian. So now I press here, and now I get this big and much more dramatic result. This is what the rule of the special points is all about. And you have to learn, this can get a little crazy. It can keep you up at night because you can be reading a pressure point book, an acupuncture book, and find out all kinds of really interesting information. And all of that really interesting information is potentially useful in fighting. It gets a little overwhelming. Now, I told you at the beginning that that's what would happen. It would start to feel a little overwhelming at some point in the middle of this. But I told you that there were 4 things that you were going to learn, and when we got to the end, you would see that it was actually really simple and that you could actually do it in fighting. So, to review, area control, systemic compromise, relational artifact. Area control, where is it? How do you attack it? Angle and direction, touch, rub, hit. What does it do? What's its name? Systemic compromise. Hey, attack any point on the meridian, and if you could attack the actual organ itself, that would be good, but it's actually hard to get. But any point on the meridian becomes weakened. Relational artifact. First, we talked about diurnal cycle. Energy flows through the body. Just follow that, because when I hit a point, it stops the energy from going to the next meridian in the cycle, so I just go after that meridian because now it's weakened. Yin and yang, when I hit a point, it calls for reinforcements from its closest ally, which is its husband or wife meridian. That meridian is weaker. 5 element, when I hit a point, the negative energy I put into that point gets shunted into the garbage meridian. And the pattern is metal cuts wood, wood penetrates earth, earth obstructs water, water puts out fire, fire melts metal. And then there's the rule of the special points, the ones where there's just like individual stuff and it gets a little crazy making. But here's where it gets simple. The 4th and final principle. It's called kinesthetic response. Kinesthetic response is incredibly easy. I call this pressure points for dummies. Pretty much all I have to know is a few points. I don't even need a lot. I don't even have to know the theory. All I have to know is that right from the beginning, if I attack a point, the body reacts in a predictable way. Area control is part of a predictable body response. Part of that predictable body response is what happens in the immediate area, but part of it is the way in which the body guards or protects the organ. In the process of guarding or protecting the organ, what happens is the body sacrifices something else. It makes something else weaker. Here's a simple way to put that. When I attack a point, something hides, something else is sacrificed. Something hides, something comes forward, hit what comes forward. It's that simple. It's really that simple. You can take the whole thing and reduce it to that fundamental principle. You attack a point, you're going to get a reaction that's going to expose something, and all you have to do is hit that something, whatever that is. And all of the principles that we talk about manifest themselves some way or another in one of these kinds of reactions. Every single one will. Look, so this is triple warmer. Oh, it can be helpful for me to know the principle that, hey, I'm doing triple warmer on one side, there's triple warmer on the other side, and I'm just following the rule of systemic compromise. But I don't have to. I just go, oh, I can hit there. You see? It starts out seeming overwhelming, but it ends up being incredibly simple. Hit a point, attack a point, something hides, something comes out, hit what comes out. This means you can actually do it under stress in combat.